So I've created a list of about 20 items that I think are important to think about when you're writing your resume. And I'm just going to speak to these 20 items now, and I might build the list as well and include the list in a text file. So here's the first one. Use the name that everybody refers to you as. If your name is Jimmy Williams, then on your LinkedIn, on your resume, use Jimmy Williams. You don't need to use James L. Williams Jr. Okay? And for my female friends who are married and they used to have go by their maiden name, if you are now, the world knows you as your married name, then it's Betty Smith. Not Betty Appleton, which is your maiden name. Use the name that people refer to you as today. Here's the next one. You want to have good contact information on your resume. So you want to have a single email address. And by the way, not a Hotmail, not an AOL. I don't even recommend a Yahoo. For most of us, an Outlook.com, a me.com, or gmail.com is, use a good, currently acceptable email address. I have tlburris@gmail.com, but I also have tlburris@burrisconsulting.com. It's my own domain. A single phone number, not two phone numbers. One phone number, and it better be a phone that you have easily, quick access to so you can answer that phone or at the very least respond in a timely manner. Put your LinkedIn profile URL as your contact information on the top of your resume. Do not put any of this information in the, the header. Put this in the main body of the resume. Applicant tracking systems may strip out header information, so don't put it up there. Put it in the main body of your resume. And when you do put your LinkedIn profile URL, strip out all those trailing numbers, which means go edit your LinkedIn profile URL, and you do that through your contact information. You'll see it, edit contact information, and edit the profile URL. On your resume, you want city and state, maybe zip code. You do not need to have your street address. Now, past the contact information. Here's an idea. If you're going to have a summary statement or an objective statement, then tell the viewer who you are and what you do / want to do. Don't use that section to flatter yourself and use a bunch of fluffy words that you're using to vet yourself. Very clearly tell the reader who you are and what you do or want to do, and maybe put it in some context speaking to the company. So if you're applying for a software engineer degree, then make sure you're speaking to being a software engineer and how you want to and can create value for an organization with your software engineering ability. Summary statement, who you are, what you do or want to do, speaking to the business need. No pictures. You don't need a picture of yourself. If you're doing a chronological resume, use months and years, because a hiring manager sees a chronological resume and they see 2011 to 2012. They're going to want to make sure that's not December 2011 to January 2012. So might as well go ahead and be totally transparent, months and years in a chronological resume. Use the name of the company you used to work for in prior experience section. And if they are acquired by somebody, you can refer to them as the acquired name, but reference the fact that you worked for them when they were the previous name of the company, so that there's clarity in who you work for. Unless the company you work for is totally unknown, and then you can refer to the acquired name if you want to. But often you want to be as transparent as you can, because hiring managers and recruiters are going to ask those questions. You might want to use the HR assigned title that you have in the previous experiences, but only if it speaks clearly to what you did for the company. Look at that. Think about, what do these titles say? If the title that your HR department gave you is totally internally focused and doesn't have any meaning externally to other companies, then I would think about using another title that better speaks to what you did for the company, again, relevant to what do you want to do. Now, there's a thing called PAR statements. PAR stands for Problem, Project, Action, Result. When you're writing your experiences in prior companies or your current company, think about writing these experiences in a PAR statement. What was the problem or the project the company had? What was the actions that you took? And then what was the result of those actions? When you think about those value statements that a PAR statement can make, when a hiring manager sees the value statements, the value that you delivered through your actions focused on the need, that is much more impactful than I did project management for an IT department. It doesn't tell me a whole lot. Here's number 9. Strive to only share what you did in prior jobs that is relevant or shows professional growth. You do not need to talk about all the things you did in a prior job that is not relevant to what you want to do and or does not show growth. Think about speaking very clearly. This resume needs to be highly relevant to the job you want or the job you're applying for, not just autobiography. By the way, when you write these PAR statements, 4 to 5 statements per job entry is about all you need. 3 or 4 or 5 at the most. You don't need to tell the whole story. Just tell enough of the story that shows that you're relevant, that shows that you have experiences doing what you want to be doing for the company that you're sending your resume to. So you always want to look through the job description for the job you're applying for or the type of job that you're applying for and find keywords. You want to make sure your resume speaks to that work, speaks to that kind of work, speaks to that role using keywords. And the best way to find those keywords is in job description or the job description that you're applying for. Here's a really cool idea that I've been recommending for many, many years now. I do recommend you have a cover letter, but you could make the first page of your resume be the cover letter. So make that first page, dear hiring manager, dear, Steve Johnson, whoever you're sending it to, and have your very clear, focused, business-oriented cover letter. And then sign it with, sign Teddy Burris, and then page 2 of that single document would be the start to your resume. That way the hiring manager gets, one document. They don't need to print another document or download another document. They can download one document and get it all. Number 13, name your resume something like TLB-resume-month year. Don't call it resume, and don't call it resume to get hired by Dropbox. It's Teddy Burris's resume for this period. So TLB-resume-the month year is what is my style. Use whatever style you want, but don't name it after the company, and don't make it some long-winded thing, and don't just call it resume. Proofread your resume before finalizing it, and use a tool like Grammarly.com. Love Grammarly. I don't always agree with it, but you really want to make sure that A, you don't spell the company name wrong, B, you don't spell the prior company's name wrong, and C, you don't want big old ugly typos in there. And so use Grammarly to make sure you do it right. And proofread again before you hit the final save button. Don't overwrite your resume. You don't need to tell everything. Just speak clearly and concisely to what you did in prior roles that's relevant to what you want to do or what you're doing today. You don't need any, and you don't need to go back 20 years. You just 10 or 15 years, go back as far as it's relevant, but 10 or 15 at the most. And use simple sentences. Don't tell long-winded stories in a resume. You tell those stories in an interview, but you write them in a concise, simplistic way on the resume. Never include any negative statements of any kind about yourself. Don't speak about a failure you had, and don't speak about any other company in a negative way or any other human in a negative way in your resume or on your cover letter. Never. And in the interview, you don't talk negative either. Don't belittle yourself either. That's not helpful. Generally, I would not add any graphics or colors to my resume. I'm doing black on white. No graphics, no emoticons, none of that stuff. I'm not trying to get a graphical design job. For the current role that you're in, speak to that work in the present tense. Example, I am managing, I am directing. But in your prior roles, you'll speak about it in past tense. I directed, I managed, etc., etc. There are lots of philosophies about resume length. I think if the document is clearly written and speaking to who you are, what you do, what you want to do, relevant to that job, then you should be able to pull that off in no more than 3 pages. You really don't need that much, especially if you haven't been, 63 years in the business world. I haven't been that long. So really, people who are less than 10 years, if you have 3 pages, you're saying way too much. If you have a career gap, then you want to speak to that in some positive way. And most importantly, what you want, maybe it's only 1 or 2 sentences, that's okay. But if hopefully during that career gap, that gap in your work experience, you found time to grow, to learn, to develop, and maybe even help others. So you can speak to that, again, where relevant in the statement of your career gap. So these are just some basic ideas that I share. I mean, don't just rely on me. Go do a Google search for resume tactics or resume philosophies or best practices. Read what some other people think and apply those ideas to your own resume, because at the end of the day, you want a really clear document that is highly relevant to the job you're applying for, that shows the hiring manager you had the skills, you had the experiences, you had the desire and the interest to create business value for them. That's critical. And if you can do that, you're going to put yourself ahead of every other candidate who's applying for this job. Hey, I'm Teddy. Hope this is helpful. I look forward to saying hi another day.